Today we're talking deionized water systems then, or spot-free water. Wherever you are in the world will determine what you call that, but all the same we're going to explore what's best. So today we're talking what I've done in my particular case, just one of many options, over which we'll talk through today as well, and see what works best for you depending on your application. You might have seen my previous video on hosepipe bans or water restrictions and the system I've implemented to get around that temporarily while we have one here where I live in Yorkshire in the UK. Shortly after setting that up, I realised that at the same time I could take advantage of this separate water storage and system to use it as a dedicated deionized water storage and not just general hard piped tapped water. So I never actually put any normal water in there. Where I'm from then in Yorkshire, you're talking really good water quality. So you're looking at about 170 to 200 parts per million on the TDS meter then, or total dissolved solids, which is really good water quality. But even so, anything above single digits, you're going to see that water spotting, the mineral marks or water spotting when the normal water dries on your car. So to get around that, I've used this opportunity of the hosepipe ban to install my dedicated water storage system, and that only stores deionized water in my case. I've bought a range of drums off Amazon, which I'll link below, and I'll probably put them on screen now, just to show you how I'm basically transporting my water to my storage system where I purchase it from. So once I've purchased it, I generally store it in the garage area. I'll try and keep the water storage full, and depending how many times I'm washing my car, you're talking maybe 2 to 4 car washes depending on if I'm using it for a full wash process or maybe just a final rinse. If you're final rinsing, you're talking 4, 5 times, maybe more, depending on car size. When you're talking a big car like my Range Rover, you don't tend to get as many washes out of it. If you're using it for the full wash process on the Range Rover, I'm looking at maybe 2 from a 250 litre water storage. What we're doing here then is we're just filling the DI water storage system up with the drums into how we get it into the pressure washer. So we're doing that now. So we're pouring from the top here, as is good practice. Get some air in, let it breathe, and then as it gradually empties, we'll give it a spin. So that's us pretty much. I have to excuse the bike. That's us pretty much back to full then, near as makes no difference. So you're right up there, nearing its full capacity. Get probably 2 full wash processes from this. And that's including any foams, rinsing, contact washing, secondary rinsing. You can do the full lot. So when we're talking initial setup costs, everything I've purchased I'll link down below for you to have a look at and buy yourself if you're interested. So I went for the 250 litre rainwater storage butt. That comes with its own valve arrangement and stand. Stand you're talking about 30 centimetres or 1 foot, it gives you about extra added head. In addition to that then, I've bought the hosepipe connector adapters that I'll put up on screen now. So they're just basically held on with a Jubilee clip onto that bottom runoff valve, and that gives you the adaptation that we need here in the UK for your hosepipe. I've then bought one of the cheapest 15mm hoses on there, put the fittings again that I've bought off Amazon that will be linked below on. I should mention that in this case, or any case really, when you're talking pressure washer, what I'm using mine for in my particular instance, if you can get the no restriction, no non-return valves on there, that's a bit better for flow. And you know, when you're trying to prime a jet wash from one of these systems, you're looking at increased difficulty anyway, so anything you can help to aid in that process is going to be beneficial for you. So once you've bought all that, that's all you need. The other side of the hosepipe is straight into your pressure washer as normal. So from there then, if you're running a deionized water system through your pressure washer, you're going to experience an increased priming time. So with your normal mains hard piped water, the pressure of that would usually clear your hose, your pump and your hose reel, and everything will be just fine. You'll prime in a couple of seconds. What you'll get with your deionized water storage in this case, or any water storage when you're doing it this way and not running it from a hard pipe pressurized system, is an increased priming time. So all you've got is, basically my rear garden is only a little bit above height-wise my front garden area or my drive. So you've got a tiny little bit of head. You've got the head of the stand, and then the increased head of whatever the water height itself is in there. But you're talking absolutely minuscule pressure in the grand scheme of things compared to a hard piped water system. So you want to make sure you've got free flowing water going right through that before you connect it into your pressure washer. You then want to give your pressure washer a bit of time to get as much air out of the pump itself and maybe into the hose reel as you can. If you can keep the trigger open, that'll just aid it and make sure it's got an open end for everything to go out and get rid of the air. And then turn on your pressure washer as you would normally to prime. In this case, I'm operating the camera. I've left it to try and prime itself. It's clearly evident that it's not going to do that. If you've left it, a number of seconds and there's no change in tone or it hasn't stopped the pump, you're going to have to open that open end again just to help that priming and get rid of that air out of the system. When you are trying to prime on the water butt, it seems to take a lot longer. So what you'll find with this is when you're not priming under mains pressure water and it's just the head pressure of the water butt, it tends to take a little longer. So I'll show you that now. So after you've primed then, you're pretty much looking at totally regular use. Go about your business as you would normally, whatever you're using it for. In my case, cleaning cars. If you're doing the same, you can do this. If you're using final rinse only then, and you're not doing this for a pressure washer system, for the full wash process, you might choose to only do final rinse only. If you want to do that, you can, and just connect a normal garden sprinkler head hose to the end of your system and totally miss the pressure washer, in which case you'll, get rid of those priming issues. But that depends totally what you want. Once you've got rid of those priming issues and you're just running, head pressure only, you will get a decent flow if you've got a full water tank at 250-ish litres. So it gives you a little bit of head pressure on that hose pipe there. But in my case, it's not really what I was going for. So I prefer to run mine through pressure washer. If you're the same, you'll just be able to operate as normal. And I've never had any particular issues, nothing to write home about, nothing that you'll particularly notice a difference. You might hear a slightly different tone from the pressure washer pump as well, but again, that's perfectly normal in one of these instances. Depending on what you've done then and how you've washed it, whether you've gone full wash process, final rinse only, the benefits that you've now got from a spot-free or a deionized water system is that you don't have to dry your car. In my case, that appealed to me. I have machine polished just this summer again, my Range Rover, and then ceramic coated it. Since then, I've done various washes, contact washes, foam and rinsing only, various different stages. But one thing I haven't done is dried the vehicle. So I've not had to, because I've used deionized water every time. And for me, that's just an added benefit of not touching the car again. Every time you touch the car, you're increasing the risk of any scratching or swirling or marring of the paint. So anytime you can decrease that, especially if you've not done a contact wash, then that's beneficial. What I'll do a lot of the time in the summer is, if it's just dust or pollen that's settled on the car, I'll do a foam and rinse and then leave it to air dry. And one thing you don't want to do is, if you're just doing a foam and rinse only and you've not done a full contact wash to decontaminate your paint, is then do a contact dry. If you've not done a mechanical contact wash to get rid of absolutely everything off the surface of the paint, and then you do a contact drying process, that just doesn't sit right with me, and you're just asking for trouble, especially if you've missed any little bits. That just increases the risk or the probability of doing some sort of damage to your paint. Anytime you can touch your paint less is a benefit to you. So for me, I prefer to use deionized water where I can, and now I've got that available to me. I use it absolutely every time for final rinse, and depending what I'm doing, sometimes a full wash process, especially in my own vehicle. If you're doing somebody else's, you might do general hard piped water and then a final rinse with DI. This has also got me through a time this summer where in Yorkshire, in the UK where I live, we're going through a hosepipe ban, so I've been able to run my deionized water system without issue and use that for full wash processes, circumventing the hosepipe ban and water restrictions that have been applied for us. Other options then, you can look at buying your own resin tank for home. If you're subject to any water restrictions or anything at the minute, you won't be able to do that, so the DI water getting it that route isn't really possible. You're not going to have sufficient pressure from running through a localized storage like I've got in my water butt to get through your resin tank, filter it and get good clean water out the other side. So depending again on your situation, you may or may not be able to do that. If you can do that and it is an option for you, so I'll put something up on the screen now, what is a bit of a DIY system for home, something that you might want to consider if you've no hard piped water restrictions in your area or hose pipe bans or anything. And then this is something that's probably a bit of an easier setup. Initial setup costs maybe a bit more, and ongoing maintenance and resin costs and everything totally dependent on how much you use your system. So that'd be up to you. You would have to read for the specific instructions on whatever resin you're buying or system you're buying as to how many litres that could have through it while still maintaining really good water quality. One thing I would suggest is getting your own TDS meter. So this is just one of the cheapest TDS meters off Amazon. This shows you in parts per million what total dissolved solid you've got in your water. Really easy and quick test to test your localized water. So if you're running your own system at home, your own resin tank, that'll give you a clear indication as well as a rough guide from the manufacturer's instructions when your water is good enough or subsequently not good enough. When you're starting to talk above single digits on the ppm for TDS, you might start to see some water spotting and some marks left behind. So you'd have to keep an eye on that. You know, if you're getting maybe 8, 9 or above on parts per million, then you might want to look at replenishing the resin in your system. That is an easy solution for home, as long as funds allow and that's something you really want to get into. If you're doing this just on a bit of an enthusiast basis, you might think that's a bit OTT or a bit extreme and not something you're really looking to get into. That's totally understandable. If you're a professional, a lot of professionals like these mobile systems that they can take with them. So they can plug that resin tank into wherever they are basically. As long as there's hard piped water and the hose pipe connections are as they would expect, they can take that with them and use that wherever required. When you're looking at a localized water storage like I've gone for, that's personal use or home use as it is. If I were to be doing other people's, for me that's a non-issue because I will be doing it at my own property. I don't do that on a mobile basis. It's just very select, small, you know, friends, family, that sort of work colleagues, them sort of things that I'll do work for. I'm not looking for business or anything usually, so I tend to do that only from my house, so having a localized water storage isn't an issue for me. I don't need the mobility, having a resin tank that I can take anywhere I go for my Spotless water. So I hope you've found today's video useful. Let me know if you've done something similar or you're into getting into something similar. I'll make sure to leave links to everything I've got a link for down below. Full transparency, if you do use any of those Amazon affiliate links, I will receive a small commission that just gets paid in gift vouchers in my case, so I continue to buy more things and products to review and things to try. If you've got any comments, leave them down below. Let me know what you're doing. If you've got any questions about what I've done further or you'd like some additional information, maybe you've got to build something that's better than what I've done, be sure to let me know. I'm really always looking for new things to do and to try out, especially make my life easier. Like the video if you haven't already. Drop a comment below if you've got any criticism or builds or something constructive to say. Subscribe if you're new. So from your preferences then, YouTube's going to suggest a video that it thinks you'll like best right here. I hope you've enjoyed today's video and we'll see you next time.